1642, years of conflict in England erupted into civil war. Instead of fleeing from King Charles's religious oppression, as he had done back in the 1630s, this time, Thomas Trowbridge chose to stay in England and fight. Trowbridge joined the Parliamentary Army, of which Oliver Cromwell was a leader, hoping to defeat the king's royalist forces and finally put an end to what Trowbridge saw as the rule of a brutal tyrant.
Taunton was a real hotspot in the English Civil War, and so it was a real centre of resistance to the king's forces. And Trowbridge would have been one of the key people in the castle, defending the castle and the town and holding it for Parliament.
So this petition says, showeth that your petitioner during the several sieges of Taunton was a faithful soldier under the command of Captain Thomas Trowbridge. So this guy also was wounded in battle under Captain Thomas Trowbridge, and he's petitioning also for a pension. Wow, seems like Thomas really looked out for the guys that fought under him.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, wow. And this is signed Thomas Trowbridge, Captain. And that would be his actual signature. Wow. It still seems a little bit strange to me that you could just leave your children in, like, the New World and come back to England.
I admit it does seem strange to us now, but it wasn't actually that unusual for families to be divided by the Atlantic. Maybe Thomas Trowbridge intended to come back temporarily, maybe send for the children to come over, but shipping was disrupted. The sending of letters was disrupted during the Civil War.
Okay, so I'll give him a break.
Right.
So knowing that he stayed in England, what did Thomas do during the siege of Taunton?
Well, I think it would be lovely for you to visit Taunton Castle and meet my fellow historian, Bernard Capp, who would be able to tell you all about the history of the battle that took place. So if you wanted to, you could go and take a look and actually see where Thomas Trowbridge fought.
Absolutely, that sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Usually when I travel, I do try to take in some cultural experience. And here, I get to do that, but add in with a direct connection to me. To think that my 10 times great-grandfather was here in Taunton fighting during the English Civil War. It just humanizes history. I'm headed to Taunton Castle to find out more about Thomas Trowbridge's experience during the siege of Taunton. Historian Bernard Capp is here to fill me in on all the action.
How are you?
Hi, Cindy. Very good to meet you.
Yesterday, I found out that Thomas Trowbridge was a captain in the English Civil War. So I guess I'm curious, how does a siege work? Set the stage for me a little bit. What was happening in Taunton in 1641 or 42?
So when Blake came in and got Trowbridge and these others involved, the first task was to dig trenches, put up barricades, all sorts of things, so that the castle was the ultimate stronghold and defence bastion.
Bernard tells me that in October of 1644, Taunton was the only parliamentarian holdout in Somerset County, so it was targeted by King Charles. His royalist forces surrounded the town and left the citizens with no access to help or supplies. What's even more extraordinary to me was Thomas's role in the siege. As captain, he was responsible for protecting the people of Taunton during the brutal attack that lasted 7 months.
To begin with, the garrison only had supplies of food or ammunition, gunpowder and so on for 3 months. So there's a real stress there. How are they going to last out?
Yeah.
In the last 2 or 3 months of the siege, it was tighter than ever before, which meant no food getting in. And there was desperate hunger. They were down to their very last supplies, almost out of food. They had to take thatch from the roofs of the houses to feed the horses. And they were down to the last 2 barrels or so of gunpowder. So they were very close, I guess, to having to give up time. Wow. The Royalists did break through these barricades, so they got through most of the town. They burnt a lot of the houses. And the commander sent this final challenge or summons to Blake saying, surrender now and I'll spare your lives, but if you don't surrender, you'll all be massacred.
Wow.